Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining our Inside Sharing section today. And today we're so glad to have our very special guest, Miss Dani. Hi, Dani. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you.
We're so happy to have you here and our privilege to have you join our show and sharing about your story and your passion of work. Would you please share with us about yourself and your work recently as well?
Yes, absolutely. My name's Dani Saveker. I'm based in the UK, in the Midlands, and I am now the CEO, the global CEO of an organisation called the GLAS Group, which stands for Global Life Alignment System. And we work with primarily family businesses, but also entrepreneurs, individuals, teams, sport, in helping them with alignment and the ability to progress where they've got stuck.
We're gonna, by the end of this conversation, we're gonna explore in, what is a glass method and the work that you do. Allow us to bring you all the way to when you were young, Danny. Because when we were young, we always had dreams that one day we're gonna become, this kind of person and do this kind of job and things like that, right? I know Vivian wants to be a singer. I want to be an astronaut when we were young, but neither of us become one. So our audience always want to, explore, what is Danny, when you were young, what did you dream that one day when you grow up, you're going to become?
It's a lovely question and one that I talk to clients a lot about. But my version is when I was young, I wanted to be a businesswoman. I dreamed of, I played business when I was tiny. I used to want to create things and sell things, and I watched my father, who was a businessman, and I loved the addition machine. He had a manual addition machine that he used to bring home, and I just loved anything to do with business. I didn't know what business I wanted, but I wanted to run a business.
Wow. Yeah. So you are the first person in our show out of the 346 people actually got, what you dream comes true, in your life, because yes. So you're the first one. Congratulations on that. Thank you. It's fascinating, see, 345 person before you had the dreams that not related at all to what they do when they grow up, and we would like to explore it a little bit further. When you were young, you were so young, there was a lot of things that you could dream one day you become, right? In the beautiful country like England, you can become anything, but you chose to be a business reason. Was there any driving factors behind it that that makes you have the ambitions of being a business woman?
Again, a very good question, because my two sides of the family, my mother's side and my father's side, were very different backgrounds. My father's side, very working class, not much money, whereas my mother's side had the family business and were much more affluent. And I was very privileged to grow up seeing both and having great warmth and support from both sides of the family. But my dad and his side were very much, the work ethic was very, very strong, but I saw it as exciting and playful, and I got to spend my school holidays with my paternal grandparents. So my grandfather was a carpenter, and he would take me to his place of work, and I would play in the sawdust and with the machines that he'd got, which you couldn't do now for health and safety reasons. But I enjoyed playing with those things and watching him talking to the people that worked for him, and I thought that was very exciting. And my grandmother was the head chef at a soccer club, very well-known soccer club in the region. And again, she managed a big team, and I remember her always making sure the footballers were polite and used manners, and because they were very young, and so she managed people. And I love this, managing people fairly and in the right way. And they were very very good examples and inspirations for how to get on with all sorts of people, equals, subordinates, people above. They were just such great people. And at home, they were always the center of everything. And I think that inspired this idea of working with people, particularly. But my dad, I would go on a Saturday with him to work and answer the phone, and I would have been very young, but he taught me how to answer the phone professionally, how to manufacture things, and it was just exciting. It was like a sweet shop of good things and adventures, and I think that's where it came from.
Did they know that your dream want to be a business woman back then, so that they try to equip you at the young age?
I never felt that I had any kind of pressure, which I was thankful for. We used to have a small cottage on Snowdon Mountain, and there used to be people that would walk the summit in the mountain, and if it was very hot and they were unprepared, I would sit on the front garden and sell cups of water to the people passing by. I would just get some cups from the kitchen, fill with water. This was before people had carried their own water, and I would sell them water, and I would have been 5. and I used to have a little pot with the money in, and so my family always saw I was doing something, and I another holiday I started embroidering jeans, sort of personalizing jeans, and sold those to local shops. I was a competitive ice skater, and you couldn't get merchandise with skaters on it, so I made little cartoons with skates on and framed them and sold them to my friends. So there was a pattern of yes, it was not a surprise.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I will tell my daughter to continue doing that. And so our youngest daughter has the entrepreneur mindset when she was very young. So she made handmade stuff, and then she brought that to school and sell it to her friends. But in this part of the world, sometimes you want to be creativity and you're creative and you want to be entrepreneur, and it might be limited in some of the rules that set forth by the older people, especially by teacher and stuff. So somewhere along that process, she got discouraged by her teachers, and then this is a huge example that we can share to her. That hey, Valerie, you can continue to doing that, because that will lead to a very beautiful destination, as the story of Dani that we've been our speaker today. So with that being said, we would love to explore, how did you get into the leadership journey after that? From young age selling, things to the mountain climbers and stuff, and to you get into schools and go into the corporate world working. How's that journey happen?
So when I went through my formal education and I got my degree, when I graduated, I was looking for a job and sending my my CV to different possible employers. And at the time, my mother's side of the family had a very well-established family business. and they manufactured retail fittings, so shelving and queuing systems and so on. And that business had been started by my great-grandfather in 1903. Very traditional business. And I was struggling to find a job when I was sending out the letters to everybody. And my third cousin was the managing director of the family business. And he said to me, would you like to come and spend some time here? And I had worked there during holidays as well. Would you like to come and spend some time here? I have a project for you. So I thought, okay, that seems reasonable. I will do that temporarily, just for a short period of time to help. And so my degree was product design and marketing, with quite a lot of psychology in it as well. So it was quite an interesting mix of skills. I was the only girl on the course. It was quite industrial design, but I was used to being in quite male environments. So I went and I did a few months in the family business, and I designed a product that went into department stores, a queuing system for department stores, and it was very exciting. My first real product, having come out of education. And then he said, would you do another project to do with door handles? So yes. And I stopped sending out letters to other people, and another project came along, and another project, and the temporary situation turned into a permanent situation. I found myself sort of drawn into the business because we manufactured everything. I then started to learn to weld, electroplate, anodize, polish, all these different things. Again, very exciting, with men that had worked in the roles that they'd had for years. And so young female coming in, I found I was learning how to deal with these challenging situations. And I slowly started to progress in the business. But being the youngest family member, you're often not treated very well. You're made an example of. And I think it's a good thing, because you learn to earn respect the right way. But what I noticed in the business is there were a lot of very traditional ideas about health and safety, manufacturing, that needed to be modernized a little bit. And I had a lot of pushback from certain members of the family who didn't like change. So I spent a few years doing this, and eventually had the opportunity to become production director. And I went on a director's duty course because it's a legal responsibility. Nobody had ever done anything like that in the business. They thought being a director was a privilege that was just handed to them, where I wanted to feel that I had earned what I had. And I noticed, as I was there more and more, I noticed there were tensions in the family as well that were in the business. And I'm fast forwarding quite a lot, but there was, it so happened on a certain day that my third cousin, who I got on very well with, managing director, had fallen out with my uncle, who was sales director. And the decision was to sell the business because it was so difficult. So it was now in fourth generation. And I was called into a meeting, the last one. I was the youngest, so last person called into the meeting to say, we're selling the business. And I said, I will buy it.
Oh.
I will do a management buyout. I didn't know what that meant. I was 28. I had 2 young children and a single parent as well. And I was shocked. My cousin was shocked, and he said, "Okay, I give you a week to go and find out more information." And the way the story went was I got the information and I carried out a management buyout. But to do that, I reorganized the board of directors, and I made my uncle redundant and my cousin redundant. And my third cousin, who was the managing director, became chairman because he had experience I didn't have. And to do that took a long time to do all of that, and it required the support of the shareholders. My mom was one of the shareholders. And I had 100% backing from all shareholders, including my uncle that I made redundant, even though he knew what I was going to do. It was a very difficult decision personally, but for the business was the right thing to do. And it made me realize the complexity of family business. So 90% of the world's enterprises are family businesses. And people don't realize how important they are to economies. But they are very challenging. You clearly both work together. and it can be very difficult to make sure you protect your relationships, but also that you move forward with the business in the right way. By 4th generation, that can become even more challenging when there's cousins and different involvement, not always in the business. So shareholders not involved, but want to have a say in how the business continues. And so I learned a lot the hard way doing that. And but I think it happened too late for the history of the business. It needed things to change much sooner than they did. And we entered into 2008, which was very difficult for much of the world. And we'd had to refinance to do the buyout. And people stopped buying shop fittings because everything was going online. It was very competitive. Nobody wanted to refurbish the shops, the physical shops. And in 2009, I voluntarily placed the business into administration to close it. And that was the hardest day of my life, March 2009. Because I had grown up with, people remember my mum being pregnant with me on the shop floor, they remember. So I grew up alongside these people. And I had to say that we were closing the business. Now, I'd done a buyout and I thought this was my dream from a childhood, be a businesswoman, own my own business. And I said these words, on behalf of my great-grandfather. I realized the legacy and the responsibility of my family was very, very heavy. And it wasn't my business. I was a guardian of the business. And I remember standing in front of the workforce with a single tear running down my cheek and someone saying to me, "Are you okay?" But I'd always been the one to check everyone else was okay because they were my workers. It was my job to look after them, and I couldn't do that anymore. And I felt like the little girl just for that moment of I can't do anything to help this situation. But the next day, I picked myself up and was headhunted into another business. The administrators wanted me to buy back the business from administration, and I said no because of the family. And it ended up where I took my great-grandfather's legacy and helped other family businesses. And I did that by creating a framework, which we now call GLAS. And so I'm fast forwarding a number of years, but it's 25 years of lived experience and research that I'm really honoured to carry forward, and realise that legacy isn't bricks and mortar or a specific business name. It can be the values, the lessons, all of those things that you can carry forward. And that's where we are today.
Thanks so much for sharing the journey from the 5-year-old girl, until, making a huge decision on the 28 years, asking to buy out the whole family business, given the fact that you didn't even know what that meant, right? Why did you decide to say such big things out at that specific moment to buy out your business? Do you remember the emotional carry by you back then to even say that commitment?
There were two things. The first thing was I was really concerned for my family. Martin was the managing director, and he had a very tough time trying to, because of the tensions in the business, and he had personal challenges with his family, had illness as well. So first of all, I said to him, "Are you okay?" I wanted to know he was okay. The second thing was the excitement of, I see an opportunity here. I don't really understand the detail, but I just knew intuitively that there was something that I could do. And funnily enough, I wrote something recently about, there always seem to be certain people that are the one that steps forward. And I think I've had a habit of being the one that steps forward. I don't know why. I think because I see things as being possible. I have a strong belief that things are possible even when I don't know how. I'll figure it out. And a call to serve, I think, is very strong in me. The desire to make things better for others. Almost to the point where it can be harmful for yourself sometimes, that you put everybody else forward and then you recover somewhere else. It's part of my of who I am, I think.
Thanks for sharing that. I'll share our personal story also, because we came from a background where our family also had businesses. They've been running for 30 years or so. And I chose not to get involved. So unlike you, because you have the courage to get into the family business and work yourself up the ladder, earn respect, instead of coming in and get the title, get the respect. And so you earn the respect. I chose to run away from it because I don't want to deal with complexity of, uncle, cousin, niece, and everybody in the system.
There was a reason for this, that I think I'm privileged to not be. So the business had gone oldest male, always. I was female, other part of the family. And so I didn't have the same expectations as members of my family. I think that was a big benefit, that I was already different. So I didn't run away. I just sort of stumbled into it by choice, really. Which I think is different from, I saw how challenging it can be when there is an expectation from very young, and it can be very, very difficult, because I know I did what I wanted to do. Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question, because during the conversation that you shared, you work with the people, who've been there for a long time, been there, done that, and that has a lot of, change is not easily welcome also. And then fast forward now, we have generation different in organizations, right? And And the younger people, normally when they come, they have a lot of fresh idea, a lot of things that they want to do and contribute, but they have less of patience to make
Yeah.
influence and things like that. So, you, Danny, back then was able to, you had a lot of ideas you want to run for your family in the first few months also, but you also understand, the system, the history, and how everybody is. So how did you manage that, self expectations for, something big and being able to balance that within the whole system? So not going to make any, like unhappy for yourself or over expectation for yourself, and then not breaking, everybody's, the support from the people, from the others. And you share that, skill that you did.
I think one of the benefits. So I've had various awards for entrepreneurship over the time, and I get asked that question quite a lot. Where did I learn that skill? And I think it's from being a parent. You realize that it's not easy when you're a parent and you have two children. They're not the same. You have to learn to understand and encourage people to do what you want by not just telling them what you want. And so patience, as you say, is very, very important. But I think in a family business, you have to respect the past. You have to respect, even if you don't agree with it, you have not walked the path that others have. And you have to understand that, that everybody is different and people behave as they do with reason that you might not know. You might not know the reason, but it exists and you have to be respectful. And so I found it almost, again, like when I was 5, like a game, like how can I get this person to do this thing that I know that they will resist, but I want them to move forward and enjoy doing what I want them to do. And everybody's different. So I learned very quickly the strategies of how to, I'll give you an example. There was a man that had worked for 49 years for us. Lovely man. But everybody thought he was very miserable, very resistant to things. And so the benefit of being female compared to my family members was I could use charm with him. So I would say, good morning, Mr. Oliver, how are you? How is the family? And I would work alongside him and I would always ask him how to do things because he liked to give me his knowledge. And slowly over time, he accepted me in a way that he didn't accept other people. But I think you have to use whatever qualities you have. You have to understand yourself. You have to understand other people, and then how to bring those two things together. And the most fascinating thing for me is people, how people behave, how they think. And that has been my apprenticeship of life. People teach us so much.
Yes, Vivian.
Yeah, Dennis, pretty much you're telling the story, and I remember one of the quotes I gave it to my daughters: "Has the courage to be kind." I think it is one of the quotes in this Cinderella story. And along your story and your journey, pretty much a lot of kindness is there. And the last story you were telling us, pretty much the acceptance is because of your kindness. You've been asking different questions and the emotions. And I think that's inspired some of that project that you've done, Inspire Kindness.
Yes.
And people not touching that area enough. And would you please share with us about that part?
Yes, 100%. Kindness, I think, is such an important leadership quality that we don't talk about as a leadership quality. We should. And I mean how we lead ourselves as well as how we lead businesses.
Yep.
And so that is one of the components that sits within the GLAS framework. And so in 2016, I was really fascinated with this concept of kindness. And I decided to do a month-long, it was January, I thought a new year, I will do a month-long research project. I will do a random act of kindness every day for the month of January in 2016. And so I would buy a homeless person some items, or I would leave a note for a stranger, those kinds of things. And 2 weeks into the project, I'd done an act of kindness in the morning, and I was driving along to go to a meeting, and it was morning traffic was very bad. And I didn't want to let the car that was trying to come into the traffic, I was, bumper to bumper, really close. And I thought, this is madness. I've done a kind thing, and now I'm not being kind. And so I stopped, let the car in. And I remember thinking I felt much calmer by doing that. So I thought, I need to do more than a month of this project. And so I've ended up doing, it was 5 years that I did in total. I did 2,000 consecutive days of kindness, because I realized, so kindness is the antidote for judgment. And in the world, there is too much judgment on social media, in the people pointing, judging themselves very, very harshly. That was one of the problems that I had. I had very high expectations of myself, and I would be very cruel to myself. And so this notion of kindness became a real, it's a superpower. I think if you harness it in the right way, remembering that kindness starts with you, oxygen mask on first before you can help others.
Yep.
Maya Angelou had a wonderful quote that nothing works if you don't. I thought that was very good.
Wow.
And as leaders, I've done a big research project into self-kindness, and leaders, teachers, parents spend a lot of time being kind to others but neglect themselves. So that's not a long-term strategy. We need to remember that there has to be support for leaders and people that are responsible for others, to make sure that they replenish and nourish themselves mentally, physically, because they cannot be the best leaders, best decision makers if they don't do that. And it's been a very fascinating process, and it's something that when I started the project seemed to be more accepted by women than men. But male suicide is, it's certainly in the Western world, the biggest killer of men under 28 is suicide. Not cancer, not any of these other things, it's suicide. So as a society, as humanity, we need to address some of these issues.
I think that it remind, your story remind me, so that I can remind Vivian the next time if we drive on the road, if some car want to pass on in front of us, please tell me to remind me of Dani's story.
It's,
so that we will...
it's better for you, it's better for the other person, and they don't get there any faster than you.
Yep.
But
thank you so much for sharing.
But you feel it in your stomach when you have that sort of, no, I'm not going to let them in, or let it go, let them in, and the difference that it brings to you. And again, I remember my parents driving quite aggressively in that way, and so we're the example for our children. How we behave, we are the example. And so if we want our children to be calmer, we don't just tell them, we show them.
Yep. Dani, doing it for two consecutive years, and then in total of 5 years, it's never easy. It requires you to be dedicated for it, very committed to it. I will introduce you to a gentleman. His name is Ken. He's also in England, and he's a very famous marketer in your country. So 3-4 years ago, he ran a TEDx TED Talk and talk about 365 days of being curiosity. So we teach people how to be innovative, how to be curious by doing one different thing every day. And we've been sharing that practice in Vietnam. And then, I can see 99% of the people really excited day one, and the excitement dropped, like maybe day 10 and totally forgot by day 11. But you've been able to do that, for 2 consecutive years means that you have a very strong inner strength and level of commitment to make that for you. So that's a lot of things that we need to learn, and our audience need to learn to be self, regulating well, and then so that we can be role model, commit to what we say we do, then so that before we can lead other people to doing what we want them to do, they should be doing also. We list to the most important question of today also about how did you, from running the business and then, put into administrative and spend years of research coming up to the GLAS methodology. Can you share that with us? What it is and how the journey to method?
So I hadn't realized that I was living or starting to move to a different way of thinking that was to become the GLAS method. So where did it come from? I needed it. I think some of the best products, the best ideas that people create are the ones that someone has realized they need it for themselves first. So when I was in the challenge of the family business and it was so tough at times, I needed something to feel better. And there was nothing that I could find in the market. I tried coaching and various things, but nothing really worked. Plus, I had all these lessons from the family business. And because my background was product design and marketing and psychology, I combine those things to say, I need to design my own solution. And I have always been very fascinated with different beliefs around the world, from Buddhism to all these different thoughts and ideas. And what are the common threads? So Stoicism, the great philosophers, what are the common ideas? How did they tackle things? And the only way I can describe how GLAS came to be, apart from that I needed it, was to bring all of my very strange experiences together: ice skating, ballet, business, parenting, the research that I'd done. And what I realized is that you can break any living system down into effectively 7 things. So, and I usually have these on a string. So I show a string and there are 5 colors on the string. The one that sits at the top is purpose. Every living system, whether we have a project, a business, a person, has a purpose. And purpose is something that it's an innate quality. It is not a physical thing. It is something that sits within you. So my purpose is to inspire. My husband's purpose is adventure. So very different. So purpose. The next thing down is the external world and impact. We are always impacted by things outside of our control, whether it is COVID, whether it is economics, whether it is somebody crashes into your car, whatever it is, external impact. The next thing down on the string is doing. We do things. We have to-do lists. We have careers. We have responsibilities. We have families to raise. There's lots of action that's needed, the doing. As a business, that's, we need to understand what the business does. The next thing down is relationships. How we relate to ourselves, to others, to the story, to our business. How we relate is really important. And I'm very specific. It doesn't mean family, but family is part of that, because families now are much more challenging and blended and much more different than they were generations ago, much more complex. But how we relate is key. Then the final one on the string is identity. Whether it is a business, a person, whatever it is, it's identity. The string that holds all these together is your leadership quality, that goes from who you are to purpose. And it is the thing that connects everything and holds it in alignment. So a big part of GLAS is the alignment of these qualities. Okay. And then there is a force field that operates around all of them, which is drive and motivation. So that is the seventh element. So drive, leadership, identity, relate, doing, impact, purpose. Everything will fall into one of those categories, and we need them to work together as a system and in balance. And this is critical. So what I was brought up to understand about balance is you are balanced or not balanced. Like two things. And that's what balance actually means, two pans. But it actually isn't that. There are three states of balance. There is balance. So if we were measuring something, the point at which we have perfect balance, but before we do that, we have an insufficient amount. So there is an imbalance under. If we slip and put too much into the scales, we have imbalance over. So there are three states of balance. Now, let me explain. For a person to function at their best, they are balanced. And what happens is they feel an inner confidence. And we've all felt that wonderful inner confidence. You've got this. If we don't have it, we feel doubt. And that is the foundation that we're operating from, a place of doubt, which causes tension in our relationships, causes us to get stuck in what we're doing, causes us to feel separate to the external world and feel lost without purpose. If we overcompensate for confidence, we come the other way, we try and course correct and we go too far, force, which can show up as arrogance, bullying, obnoxious. Look at me, that's not confidence, that's horrible. And what happens then is we then force our relationships, and so they pretend. Everything's wonderful with we look at social media and people put the perfect picture. That's pretend. Then what happens is when we force our doing, we become manic. We're trying to do everything, but it's just a form of stuck. What happens then is we have overload from the world. We force everything. We have too much. And finally, if we force purpose, we become trapped.
Yep.
So these are the kinds of words that we found over 25 years show up when we have balance, imbalance under, imbalance over. It's amazing how many times you see somebody and you think they're being very aggressive or they're being not very pleasant. When I see them, what I see is the doubt. Usually the imbalance under is what happens internally. The overcompensation is what happens externally. That's what we show the world. And it means that I spot these things much more easily now. What we do with clients is we help them to work out what their versions of those words are. So we help them to find what their purpose is, their identity, their relationship word, and also what their over and under words are, so that they can try and self-regulate and hold that state of balance. And we have an assessment where we can show people not only how balanced or imbalanced they are, but in each area of their life where things are out.
Yeah. I
So
took
out
the
of the 7 areas.
I took the assessment, Dani. It's a very well organized when I took it, I felt a lot of psychological research you also put in the backbone of it when you ask the structure the questions, and it's pretty easy for us to take it about
Very
5-7 minutes to get, and I'm really excited to see the result to come. I will share that with your permission, and we share that on social
Absolutely.
meeting for people to do the research, to do the
Absolutely.
assessment themselves. And
So
since when you introduced the GLAS methodology to the world?
So officially with the branding and the name and everything was 2017 officially.
Wow.
But as I say, 25 years development, research and development.
Yep.
And I think sometimes to simplify things is much harder than to overcomplicate them.
To squeeze that 25 years into
something that is of value. So the assessment, as you say, is very simple to do. The report that you will get is a PDF report with an audio walkthrough, because we all learn differently. So I like to walk people through what they're looking at, because we assume that people won't understand the framework when they do the assessment. That is usually the starting point, and then they want to learn more, and we can then take them through at the right pace. But I always think, how can we add value? Even for a free assessment, which the assessment that you took was free, how can we add value to people? Because that is more important to me than the revenue that's created. And when you do it that way, the revenue takes care of itself, because you're doing it for the right reason.
To give it first, and the receiving after comes, and because the
Correct.
values the people realize from it, right? And Dani, I will have the last question for you for today, and it's regarding to thinking. Okay, so Vivian and I also in the quest of helping other people to expand their ability to think, and because we see that our friends, the people that we know, and maybe it's too small example for us to come to that conclusion. However, we do see that the level of the people ability to think is not increasing but declining. And every chance that we got to meet experts like you, we would like to know, how do you structure your thinking so that you can do this amazing thing, to you and to the people around you. Can you share with us that?
So I read a book every week, a non-fiction book every week, and it helps me to keep the open mind. So that is one thing. And I capture those books as a visual. I don't know if you've ever seen them on visualsynopsis.com. Again, I give away the posters free, the visuals of each book and what I thought of the book. But that keeps my mind open. The other thing is the value of questions. The value of questions. As things become more complex, the value of questions increases. It's not answers that give value, it's the questions. And so I encourage my clients, when they're overwhelmed and they're struggling with things, write down questions. What are all the questions you have? And then look at your questions and start to see where the themes and patterns are. The language that you use. For example, if you write lots of questions of how do I, that's very action-based. Will I is very lacking in confidence. Will I? Should I? So look at the language that you use. But first of all, just download the questions. And I do that all the time. What are the questions that are clogging my brain? Just get them all out. put it as a question. What is the question that I'm really asking? And usually you can simplify it down to the thing you really want to know. And it's a strategy and technique that I found really, really valuable. Value the question.
Wow.
The other thing that helps me always to stay on course is knowing my purpose word of inspire. When I look at my day and I think, was it successful? My question is, have I inspired? Have I been inspired? If the answer is yes, and it could be small, it could be so small, then that is success. And so when I have decisions to make, again, I come back to questions around, does this allow me to inspire or be inspired?
Got it. So reading to keep you be curious more, and then asking the questions that help you to expand more. Thank you so much for sharing it. Then we really appreciate you spending your time with us and sharing the journey that you've been doing, the work that you do. And the reason I asked for when the glass had been introduced and is because the whole notion of being showing authenticity, for leaders just came out about 2 or 3 years ago. So, your work has been researched and been introduced far beyond that, right? And I hope that if our audience, our leaders out there who can, follow the works that you do, the research, and so that they can find balance, because I don't think that show authenticity is good, but what kind of authenticity? And then if we've been not showing authenticity for a long time, and then what is that to show authenticity to be, right? So it has to be, redefine everything again and truly find the balance as a leader, as an individual, and so that I think the glass method would be wonderful for each of us to start exploring who we are, where we're good, where we need to make improvement, and where we can find the safe place that we can show the world.
In the middle.
Yes, in the middle. So I don't need to pretend to be anything. I don't need to be, car come in front of me. It's okay. I'm happy. So being late 1 minute for get to destination, not gonna kill the world, right? But then we enjoy the ride. Is something that a lot more meaningful for everybody take place in the journey. So thank you so much for spending your time with Vivi and with me and the audience of the program. We really appreciate that, and we congratulate you for all the amazing thing that you do. If anything that in the future that you are doing that we can take part of, please let us know so that we'll be so happy to support for your success. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for lovely questions as well.
Thank you for spending your time with us, and we wish you all the best. We hope to see you sometime soon, okay?
Same. Take care.
Take care, Dani. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.